Well, the old school system was just having your assistant be there taking notes while you're doing it. And I've had it where I've had paralegals or assistants on the Zoom meeting taking notes, but a lot of times their notes weren't as good as I wanted it. So I ended up just doing my own notes. And the consultation follow, we do a consultation follow up email. That always takes a lot of time. If that could be automated and just auto populates that, if it saves, 10 minutes a consult, you're doing like 5 to 10 consults a week. That's an hour of thinking time where you're just like organizing that could get shaved off pretty quickly. It's probably more than 10 minutes a lot of times too, thinking about it and following up. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned for figuring out where you got the source. I make it mandatory. So I have an intake. I use Lawmatics as well. Not an endorsement at all, but I
Mhm.
use Lawmatics as well. I say that because they do. It's a love hate relationship. But in this intake thing I created, that's internal. We have a question about their source, and so I always make sure to on my list of questions that I go through. I've set it on that, so it helps me make sure I go through stuff. I don't always use it when I'm supposed to in our conversations, but
Yeah.
I ask him. I have a 5 minute. If even to go over to half an hour time, 5 minute setup to say, hey, how did you learn about us? Because they'll say sometimes the initial call that we just found you through YouTube, but then we're meeting. They'll say, oh, I saw you through Instagram. Then I started following you on YouTube, and then after a while, I decided to contacted you. So that information, that transition, that Instagram is where they found us, is really a big deal because I'm realizing both for the immigration lawyers toolbox and my law firm, a lot of people are searching on Instagram and finding me. And we post on Instagram because that's the thing to do. But there's a lot of people who are high value clients that do find you strictly on Instagram. And then they follow you on YouTube and get
Mhm.
attached to your newsletter, this and that. So just spending time talking with them, it's like, it has to be carved out. It's so important because when they tell me stuff too, it adds to that. I'm like, oh, okay, this is working too. You get personally excited to want to do it more.
No, I agree with you, and we did put it on our lawmatics to make it mandatory to but somehow there was a workaround and it wasn't mandatory. I don't know. That was one of the things I told them
I
to
just gotta
figure
do it when
out.
I gotta bring it up and, like,
Yeah.
ask them because even if they tell me, because a lot of
Yeah.
times they'll say, "I found you on Google," but then when you ask them, they're like, "No, I was actually listening on." They just kind of answer something quick just to get out of the way.
Well, Google is, like, the best way to not answer the question
Yeah,
because it's
the
like,
internet.
you know, yeah, the World Wide Web, like
Now, with regard to
yeah.
newsletters, this is something that I used to be very successful in converting. In the last couple months, it's like everything I do. I'll do something halfway and it works, and then one day I'll buckle down. I'm like, I'm gonna do this really good. As soon as I start, it's less effective. But a newsletter is one that was really effective. Recently, it hasn't been as effective, even though our newsletter list has grown a lot. Who do you use first of
Mhm.
all for your newsletter system?
So we use it off of Lawmatics. We were using MailChimp, for a long time, or Constant Contact and MailChimp. Which one? I think we were on Constant Contact and MailChimp. I still use MailChimp for, I think, yeah, for Power Strategy Group because it's not using Lawmatics. But yeah, we use Lawmatics. And the idea there is that the information's coming in the contact form. So, and there's a newsletter feature in it. So we just, make the automation for it to go. And then we send it out every other week. But I honestly like I could see how it feels like maybe it doesn't work, but I'm not gonna get rid of my newsletter
No,
because
it's important.
I know the calls pick up and I know especially during times when there's constant change, like that's one of the way between that and social media is how we're getting out to our clients. Like call us if this happens or do this or like letting you know. And then I feel like there's a sense of reciprocal, like that they appreciate that we're keeping an eye out on them, even if it might not even apply to them, but we're trying to give them the highlights. And Ayla does a really good job because they give us that news every business day of the highlights of immigration news. So I mean, I'm glad I do it. I think it's also good exercise in collecting all your client contacts in one place, which you know so I've seen where some firms, like when they're closing up, like they might sell their book of business that way, even if it's just a list of client emails.
Yeah, I agree. What happened before was every time I send a newsletter out, I get at least one person replying saying, "Oh, I want to hire you." But now I get
Uh huh.
replies, but it's kind of like keeping relationships warm and friendly with people because to them it's like you're sending it to them if they know you. It's less generic,
Mm,
and so it keeps the relationship warm for 5 years down the line for citizenship or when they finally like meet someone overseas, they remember you. It's constantly being in their thoughts. And that's what a lot of social media is like on LinkedIn is posting enough where they're habitually seeing your name kind of like Coca-Cola that
mhm.
advertised in Olympics. Everyone knows Coca-Cola, but they always have to keep themselves at the forefront of your head or your thought when it comes to soda, and that's how they do it.